The poisonous part of poison ivy is a substance in the sap known as urushiol. It's a very oily resin that remains inside the leaves, stems, and the roots and doesn't leak out unless the plant is damaged or bruised. So it's possible to touch an unblemished poison ivy plant and not have any type of reaction. But just the slightest damage may be caused from walking through a patch of the plants, or an insect making a tiny bite in the leaf can cause leakage, and just the most minute amount can cause a reaction. When urushiol, or that oily resin, comes in contact with your skin, it usually takes about 10 minutes before it penetrates deep enough to do any damage. So if you're out weeding or outside and you think you've touched poison ivy, you think you've got that oil on your skin, go immediately and wash that area with lots of cold water, and hopefully you'll be able to get that resin off of your skin. One myth about poison ivy is the belief that you can get poison ivy just by being near the plants, like maybe the poison is in the air or something like that. Well, that's not true. For one thing, urushiol, or that poisonous oily resin, is not present in poison ivy pollen. So if you get poison ivy pollen on you, you're not going to get poison ivy. The only way that it can get into the air is if the plants are being burned and small plant fragments become airborne, and those can contain a little bit of the oil. So that can get on your skin, and it can also be breathed in and the lungs inflamed. So for that reason, you should never burn any poison ivy or poison oak plants. A couple reasons I believe people think you can get it just by being near the plant are because poison ivy a lot of times is given to people, or people get poison ivy by contact indirectly without them even knowing about it. And also because it can take 12 to 24 hours before the symptoms show up. For example, a guy goes out to walk his dog. He lets the dog off the leash to run free. Out of sight, the dog runs through a patch of poison ivy. It breaks some of the leaves, gets some of that oily resin on its skin. The dog comes back to its owner. The owner comes up, pets the dog, gets the oil on his hand. He then checks his watch, maybe scratches his arm, touches his face or something like that. Then a day later, he has no idea how he got poison ivy when the blisters and that redness starts to show up in all sorts of places. But this happens quite a bit, this indirect exposure. There are instances where people have gotten exposure from contaminated garden tools that have been locked up in a garden shed for over 3 years. The poisonous substance urushiol can remain active on clothing for up to 1 year. So it's a good idea to be careful, and if you have any clothes, garden tools, gloves, or boots that maybe you think have some of that oil from poison ivy on them, it's a good idea to make sure that you keep those clean. Our best defense against poison ivy is to be able to recognize it so we can avoid it. And before I show you how to identify poison ivy and poison oak in Oklahoma, I want to give you a short botany lesson on leaves. It's important that we understand the difference between a simple leaf and a compound leaf. Right here we've got a few simple leaves, and you can see that they're made up of a blade and the petiole, or the little leaf stalk, where this simple leaf is attached to the stem, or the twig here. You can usually find a little bud down there in that axis. This is the axillary bud, and if something were to happen to this leaf, if it were to get eaten or stripped away, that little bud could regrow a new leaf. But again, just to kind of show you, a simple leaf made up of the blade, the petiole, axillary bud attached to the stem. Now, a compound leaf is a leaf made up of several leaflets. Right here, this entire structure from the stem oops, it's kind of flipping over on me there. From the stem to the end out here is one leaf. This entire structure is one leaf. These things are called leaflets. The whole thing is one leaf. We again have a petiole leading up from the stem up to that first little portion of leaflets there. And then this structure is known as a rachis, R-A-C-H-I-S. It's the structure that the leaflets are attached to. Now we can again find the bud down here where the leaf joins the stem. Now that's the big difference between a leaflet and a leaf. You can see that up here, we know this is not a stem because there are no little buds in the axis of these structures. Again, these are leaflets, not leaves. One leaf on this plant right here. Right here we've got a pecan, and again, kind of the same thing. We've got two leaves attached to the stem, and you can see that very prominent axillary bud on the pecan here. And this leaf again has several leaflets. This is a compound leaf. Now we have other types of compound leaves. With the Kentucky coffee tree here, we've got a twice compound leaf. Again, this whole thing is one leaf, this whole structure, all the way to the branch. Again, you can see where there's a bud down in there, right above the leaf there. So that tells us that that is the point where the leaf attaches to the stem. And again, all these are leaflets. Now, being a twice compound leaf, the rachis is branched. So we have a branched rachis, two sets of a rachis, and these little leaflets are attached to that. So a compound leaf. A different type of compound leaf, like this buckeye we've got here, this is known as a palmately compound leaf, sort of like the fingers attached to your palm. But you can see that the leaflets all attach at one point. Again, this is a compound leaf, and if we look, we can see there is a bud back here at the union of the leaf and the stem. Well, the reason I wanted to explain all this, the difference between simple and compound leaves, is because poison ivy and poison oak have a particular type of compound leaf. And I've got a poison ivy twig right over here, and I'll just show you what I mean. Again, this is one leaf, and it's known as a trifoliate compound leaf made up of 3 separate leaflets. And the pattern, the way you can identify poison ivy and poison oak, is that these 2 lateral leaflets are attached close to the petiole here, and then the terminal leaflet is perpendicular. It's arranged perpendicular or nearly so to the 2 lateral leaflets, and there's that little section of a rachis that separates it. It's sort of extended from the other 2. So when you're out hiking or gardening and you see these leaflets, these 3 leaflets making up a trifoliate compound leaf and this little extended rachis segment, you'll know that it's most likely poison ivy, and it's best to stay away and leave it alone. Leaflets 3, let it be. Poison ivy, Toxicodenron radicans, is present over much of the eastern and midwestern United States, and it covers a good portion of Oklahoma. The plants can grow as sparsely branched shrubs, kind of like we've got with this one right here. They can also grow as a shrub in a thicket. They can grow as a ground cover, sort of trailing along the ground, and they also grow as vines up into trees. They have lots of little adventitious or aerial roots that help them attach to a tree or some other support that they climb on. It sort of makes them look like hairy ropes, and those can get quite large, those poison ivy vines, and climb way up high into the trees. The plants can be growing in the shade, they can be growing out in sun, they can have pale green leaves, they can have dark leaves, and the size of the leaves also can vary quite a bit. Right here I've got a small poison ivy leaf, and you can just compare it to this one. So there's quite a difference in size. You can also see that there's quite a variation in the edge of the leaf. You can see this one is entire. It's not interrupted very much at all. But then you look on the very same plant, just down one leaf, and look at the dentations or the lobing on this leaflet, and also up in this area. So quite a bit of variation with poison ivy, Toxicodenron radicans. If you look down the side here, you can see some of the fruit, some of those little berries of the plants that the birds like to eat and spread around to our gardens. They're green right now, but they will turn white as they age. We also have poison oak in Oklahoma, Toxicodenron pubescens. Now, its range is southeastern United States, and it kind of makes it part of that range into Oklahoma, sort of covers the eastern half or a little bit more of the state. Right here I've got an example of poison oak, Toxicodenron pubescens. It does have more pubescens on its leaves and on its petioles, so it's a little bit fuzzy. The plants are somewhat lobed, sort of like an oak leaf. That's how they got their names. Poison oak. Poison oak is not a type of oak at all, or a plant that grows around oak. It's very similar to poison ivy. In fact, sometimes they're extremely hard to tell apart, but you can see a little bit more of that larger lobing right here. Poison oak doesn't climb as a vine. It's going to be a sparsely branched small shrub in the landscape or out in the wild areas. Now, out in the western part of Oklahoma, we have a different type of poison ivy. It's known as Rydberg's poison ivy. It's very similar to poison oak, another small shrub that doesn't climb, sparsely branched, not quite as fuzzy as poison oak is Rydberg's poison ivy. But all of these, poison ivy, poison oak, Rydberg's poison ivy, they all contain urushiol, so if you're allergic at all, you're allergic to all of them. So there's no way you can say you're allergic to poison ivy, but you're not allergic to poison oak. They have the same chemical, it's almost the same plant. Another good thing for us is that they all look a lot alike. Again, they have that trifoliate compound leaf with that little extended terminal leaf or terminal rachis segment like we've got right here on this poison oak. I also want to point out that we do not have poison sumac in Oklahoma. Poisonous sumac is Toxicodenron vernix. Its range is eastern and southeastern United States. Doesn't make it into Oklahoma, hasn't been reported from Oklahoma. The sumacs that we have growing here, like this one, like this smooth sumac, is in the genus Rhus. And all of our sumacs are not poisonous. They're good sumacs. So this is a nice sumac. Good sumac. Well, you might think I've either lost my mind or just forgot to put my gloves on since I'm handling this plant, but this is actually not poison ivy. This is a plant that looks a lot like it. This is boxelder. It's a tree closely related to our maples, but when it's young, it looks all the world like poison ivy. One of the big differences between boxelder and poison ivy is the arrangement of the leaves on the stem. If you see right here, there's a leaf coming out on this side of the stem and one on this side. We refer to that as opposite arrangement. Now right down here on this poison oak, the leaves are alternate on the stem. They sort of zigzag as you go up or go down. They're not arranged where one is right on the other side of the stem. Again, the boxelder has opposite leaves. Also on the boxelder, as it gets a little bit older, the leaflets will become more in number. Here's a little bit older stem here, and you can see there are actually 5 leaflets on this leaf of the boxelder. But again, you see that opposite arrangement and that green stem on the boxelder, a plant that looks a lot like poison ivy. Another plant that is confused with poison ivy all the time is Virginia creeper, and I've got a sample of it right here. It's a vine, a climbing plant, one of our native vines. It has really showy red or red-orange fall color, but it is perfectly harmless. It's not even in the same family. Virginia creeper is in the same family as our grapes. The leaves of Virginia creeper are palmately compound, like I was talking about earlier. or excuse me, the leaves are a palmately compound. All the leaflets attach at one point, and then we got this petiole leading down to the stem, and again, that bud down there where the leaf joins the stem. But Virginia creeper, not poisonous at all, one of our really nice native vines. A plant that I think looks the most like poison ivy is one of our sumacs. This is Fragrant Sumac Rhus aromatica, and you can see it does have the trifoliate compound leaves. The terminal leaf is not really separated by a little segment of rachis though. It's sort of like they all three sort of attach at the same point. And it's a shrub that's a little bit more branched than our poison oak or poison ivy. It's a shrubbier or twiggier plant, a lot more branching with our fragrant sumac. Poison ivy and poison oak can be controlled with the treatment of brush killer or some sort of herbicide containing 2,4-D, like we've got right here. Make sure you read the label to see if poison ivy is indeed listed on the label. Heed the other precautionary statements. Don't spray this stuff when it's windy, and make sure you don't get it on any of your other plants. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of poison ivy seedlings are introduced into our landscapes by birds. There are over 50 species of birds that eat the fruit and then drop the seed along with a little bird fertilizer into our gardens. So one nifty way to take care of some of those little poison ivy or poison oak seedlings that pop up is with a plastic bag, maybe a bread sack or something like that. But just insert your hand into the bag. We've got a little poison ivy seedling down here. Just using the bag to grip the plant and try to pull it out of the ground. And once you get it up out of the ground, just reverse the bag without coming in contact with any of that foliage. Bag it up that way, tie it up, toss it in the garbage, and you're rid of the problem. So remember, poison ivy and poison oak are similar plants. They can have varying forms. They can be found in the shade or out in the sun. Look for that compound leaf arrangement of 3 leaflets, 2 lateral ones, and 1 extended terminal leaf segment. And if you get it on your skin, go wash immediately with cold water. And I hope you have a poison ivy free zone.